Tash looks seedy but sexy at the same time. Episode 274 of 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host Jamie, and I am joined by my podcast pal Stephen.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday indeed. And Martin Melly.
Unhappy Monday.
Unhappy Monday for Martin Melly. The emotions are all over the place already. This podcast is brought to you by our Patreon service. Mark the editor's going to pop the address down there. It's also in the comments. If you like what we do on this flagship podcast, check out patreon.com/20minutetims. Very simple. In exchange for your financial support, and it can start at about £2 a month, you get extra content, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra writing, a whole host of great, brilliant 20-minute Tims independent fan content. And to do that, 20 Minute Tims, patreon.com/20minutetims. Martin Melly.
Yes.
Celtic v Livingston. Livingston, for us, is up there with an away game that's like a challenge like the San Siro or the Bernabeu. It is one of the more difficult stadiums we are going to go to. We've not beat them since they got promoted into the league in 2018. I think, Stephen, you looked back. The last time we actually beat them at the Almondvale was, 2007?
Derek Riordan scored a double that day, to give it a bit of context there. Secured a brace.
Obviously, Livingston have been in and out of the league since then. They've not had that sort of hoodoo over us for the best part of God knows how long. Quick maths. But Melly, once again, watching that game yesterday, it played out like so many games against Livingston have.
I know, and look, this is strange for me because I'm looking at it going, look, we've not won there for ages. Why do we always do this? It's the same with the sort of away thing, like in Europe. Why do we let in goals one after the other? And I can't help going back to that shouldn't have any bearing on it. This is a brand new team, new manager, new players, yet we still fail to do this. And this one, yesterday, as we were on Monday tonight, I was like, Saturday night, I was thinking, right, we're going to win tomorrow because they are gash. Yeah. Livingston are gash.
Preview show, I was predicting 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And it's not until you see the start of the game and then you remember, yes, the pitch is terrible, but at the same time, all the reasons, excuses, whatever you want to call them, at the end of the day, it's the first game I've thought about Ange Postecoglou. You should have won that game.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you leeway in certain things, like the Betis game. There's circumstances, there's reasons, possibly excuses. But that one yesterday, yes, there's more reasons and all that. But mate, you should have won that game.
I'm glad you're addressing him directly, referring to him in the third person there, because you know he's watching.
And he's subscribed, and you should also subscribe. And you can do that by hitting the subscribe button down below and click the bell. And do you know what that does? It stops you having a tweet us saying when's the video out, because you know right away when it comes out, and it saves us some precious time. What you said, Melly, about Ange saying, we should have won that game. Ange said it himself. And it was refreshing for me after the match, Stephen, to hear a manager come out and say exactly what we were thinking, because we did the reaction, we did a live reaction, immediately took to the mics after that match, produced a podcast and a video for the guys on Patreon, and what we said about the game, the things we didn't like, the problems with the approach, it was all what Ange said after the game. He said the mentality wasn't right. He said that the fixture got in the players' head a wee bit. They overplayed how difficult it was and how difficult it would be in the pitch. They said they started too tentatively. He called his attackers terrible, but he did say, crucially, that team was good enough to get a result. And for me, that sort of encapsulates the whole game. That lineup we had, yes, it was depleted. Yes, there was key players missing. Yes, maybe our best defender in Julian was missing, our best midfielder in McGregor, our best winger in Forrest, and our best striker in Kyogo. Yes, they might have.
It's quite bad, isn't it, when you list all of that? But at the same time,
they're all good players. Yeah. They're all good players, but they were missing. So. But still, what was left for me, what the 11 players that took to that pitch that day, should have been enough talent there to see away a Livingston team who were, on the day as well, very poor.
No doubt, absolutely no doubt. Livingston are a poor team. They're not even the Livingston that we grew to grudgingly respect last season. We kind of get a bit tired of the whole Martindale loving as well, especially you, Melly. You just weren't having it. Absolutely sick to death of it. But they're not that. Hadn't they won a game this season? I think they'd beaten Cowdenbeath, but they hadn't won a top flight game so far. So for Celtic to be turning up, in some ways, reading between the lines of what Anne just said there, fearful of the fixture a wee bit, of the surface and all that. Right, I get the surface and all that, but
the surface is, I mean, it was
terrible.
awful.
It's terrible. There's no doubt about that. That is a hindrance. I wouldn't go as far to call it a leveller, because ultimately we should still have better players than Livingston. So it doesn't level things. It makes things more difficult, more complicated.
Pitches shouldn't end up down the throats of sea turtles, and that's exactly what's going to happen to that pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, exactly. No one's thought this through at all. Oh, poor Greta.
I can't get a plastic straw at McDonald's, but Livingston are allowed that.
Aye, but put a couple of tons of it down on the ground at Livingston. No, the surface is tricky. There's no doubt about it. And Celtic just seem to just be unable to win on it. But there's a lot of this stuff floating about after the game about how, that Livingston are Celtic's bogey team, so you kind of expect this. No,
don't exist.
They don't exist. I know this. This is like some sort of just hoodoo. This is like some superstitious bunkum. There's no such thing as a bogey team.
Look, bogey teams do exist somewhat. Say, for example, two managers who go head to head quite a lot, and one manager just kind of knows how to get the best.
That Chelsea, Liverpool, Mourinho, Benitez.
Of course, yeah.
That sort of does it. But when you're talking about, as Ismaila said, a brand new Celtic team,
brand new Livingston team,
Livingston team, a brand new manager. I mean, we should have. Repeat myself here, but I just firmly believe we should have had enough. Doesn't matter. There's no real wider discussion for me to be had about recruitment, etc., etc. It's not even worth touching on for me, given the context Livingston game, because I think what we had on the pitch was good enough. Now, the thing that really got to me, Melly, was Ange's approach to the game, not Ange's approach, the team's approach, but he did take responsibility afterwards. That wasn't Ange ball. That wasn't the way we've seen Celtic approach games. It wasn't even the way that we saw Celtic approach the Betis game, but this sort of aimless crossing over Ajeti's head, it was driving me mental watching the game.
Yeah, the first, even up to the Livingston goal, watching it back, I was like, even though I knew we were going to lose again, because I'd already seen it, I'm like, how do we lose this game? Because Livingston had one shot from distance before that, but Celtic just had them penned in, and it was
one-way traffic.
It was there. Even their striker dropped in, and I was like, right, so Celtic are going to break them down at some point, knowing fine well they wouldn't. But the first 25 minutes, you're
arguing against yourself.
I know. I was like, it must be a different game I'm about to watch here, because the first 25 minutes, not that we were brilliant and we created loads of chances, but just the way the game was playing out, we were just pushing them back, we were getting into good positions, but it was just the composure at the very end. Abada getting to the byline or getting to a good crossing position and putting it behind Rogic, or Rogic getting into a good position and wanting a million touches, or Jota just firing it over, or getting caught under Ajeti's feet. It was just also such a lack of composure from Celtic, and it just made me think, why can we, that was my throat there, I don't know what hit. Why can we do that at Celtic?
Happy to let him take the blame, because it's actually my throat.
Oh, was it? I thought it was mine. It must have came through my head. So I was, why is it different away from home to home? Because if that was at Celtic Park, we'd have won that convincingly. Now, I'm not saying we're bad away, but it was just one of those games I thought, as soon as somebody made a mistake and didn't let that Abada cut back for Rogic, if he gets that, Rogic gets it, scores, it's a totally different game. But it's the mentality of the team I worry about. When things don't go their way, they start to let it get in their heads. Just like Betis, when we let in a goal, oh no. Like the Michelin game, oh no. When we go down to 10 men, oh no. These wee things, we need to be stronger mentally. And I know it's a young team, it's a new team, but it's Livingston at the end of the day.
We're talking about that, Stephen, about the age of the team, and again, we touched on this. My reaction to the game, and you're talking about Tom Rogic as well, I want players, when things aren't going well, I want the experienced players, the quality players, the high-paid players to step up and do a turn for us. Tom Rogic has been relied upon at Celtic, and we've seen game-changing moments from Tom Rogic. He's kind of been revitalised a wee bit under Ange. Yeah. Ange certainly trusts him. He's turned Tom Rogic almost into a 90-minute player, which he never really was before.
Not for a choice, but there's literally no day to bring on.
That's it. But I'm watching that game, and we'll talk about other players, but for me, Tom Rogic cut a frustrating figure, because crosses were coming in, and I know what he's doing. He's hanging about the edge of the box. He's outside the 18-yard box, hoping the ball drops them so he could take one of those shots he likes to take. But sometimes I just think, if it's not happening, if we've got two players in each post and Ajeti lurking in the 6-yard box, the majority of the penalty box is empty, and that's where you want your players to come in. Yeah. You know what I mean? You want Tom Rogic in there. If it's out on the left and David Turnbull's sort of picking up a position on the left, you want somebody occupying that penalty spot because that's where the ball's dropping, and he wasn't putting himself in uncomfortable positions. He wasn't taking the game by the scruff of the neck, as you like to call it. He was waiting for things to happen for him rather than trying to make things happen, Tom Rogic.
Well, see, not specifically about Rogic here, but when we're talking about putting pressure on them, and just as an aside and just as a contrast to the other game we've played this week, the other defeat, the Betis game, after 8 or 9 minutes in that game, Soro was booked, and we thought, well, that's us. The tightrope has been walked for the rest of this game. Now, bear in mind that Livingston, after 20 minutes, had 3 players booked, one after 15 seconds. At any point during that game, do you think they looked under any pressure? Were they walking that tightrope where you think, oh, we can't make a challenge here? So how were they able to manage that? Was it just Celtic? You're using Rogic not taking up the right positions as maybe an example here, but why were we never worried, or rather, why were Livingston never worried about getting a man sent off in that game? Why didn't
they knew the ref when they do that?
Oh, maybe, but why didn't they have that level of kind of fear about it?
They didn't have a lot because I don't think they had a lot of the ball. They didn't do a lot. They weren't putting in a lot of challenges. They didn't have a lot of... We were just squandering chance after chance after chance. Melly, again, let's talk about the players that should have stepped up. What did you make of Rogic's performance?
I thought he was poor. Rogic is that kind of guy where maybe you think, oh, he won't do it on certain occasions, but when this pitch happens, I think, well, surely this is the game that Rogic should look better because he's best with his feet and he doesn't have to make up ground. He can play it along the deck like he should, and he looks worse. He looks worse. It looks like it gets caught under his feet. It's just like Celtic, despite being the better football team, don't show it on this surface. And for me, that's a mentality thing, not a quality thing, because James McCarthy, will come on to him later, he got worse as the game went on, but I think that was more a fitness thing. But Turnbull, Rogic, Jota, Abada, all very good technically, yet they all looked poor, and that's just an excuse thing, like, oh, my first touch didn't go well in the first couple of minutes, this pitch is crap. That's a weak mentality for me. You need to go, right, I need to do better next time. I need to make sure the ball's going to come like this to me. This time I'll do that. But this is just this, the way I like to describe it, and using Neil Lennon, when we get beat off Livingston, remember we get beat 2-0 in the game, everybody still talks about Julian get bullied, and that's why I made a big no-nonsense centre half. Neil Lennon called the players football snobs because they didn't want to perform on that pitch, and they used it as an excuse. I think you can say the same about yesterday.
Neil Lennon was right.
All along. In fact, he was right about absolutely everything. Bring him back. No, I agree with that. I think there needs to be... This is no longer a coincidence, and I don't believe in curses and hexes over the team and all that, but it's no longer a coincidence that Celtic just cannot perform on this pitch at all. It's too many times now over the course of several years that they're just not able to do that. Maybe it is a mentality thing, and I'm not just pulling that out of thin air, because Ange did make reference to the fact that they hinted at the idea that they maybe just overthought it, or over concerned themselves with the difficulty of the fixture, over concerned themselves with how hard it is to play on these surfaces. And if you're going into a game like that, then it may well become one of those self-fulfilling things. If you think you're going to play badly on a terrible surface, chances are you probably will.
A lot of these players were playing their first game on it, so
it's probably the camp mentality, isn't it? They're all talking to each other before the game comes up. Oh, you wait to see us pitch, it's absolutely terrible, man. You can't get the ball. It's traps under your feet every 2 seconds. You can't get. There's probably all of that in the build up to the game, but I feel like we've covered the pitch and we've covered the mentality. And
if only Celtic had.
I want to talk about James McCarthy. Stephen made there sums up James McCarthy's performance. James McCarthy, first of all, do you think it's fair to say probably played out of necessity, or do you think he was chosen over Soro because the manager firmly believed he was the better option? Because that James McCarthy performance for me was, one, very, very lacklustre, and two, an example of another high-paid, experienced footballer who you're looking to make an impression on these games, and he made little to no impression on the game for me at all. Now, there's a lot came out after the game about James McCarthy, about whether he's Ange's sort of player, whether he's fit enough to play this sort of spectre of James McCarthy's injuries that have been hanging over him. I think we need to caveat this by stating the fact that James McCarthy never had a pre-season. He had COVID. He didn't train for 16 days. He's clearly not up to the fitness that he or the manager would be happy with, which suggests to me, Stephen, that it was more necessity than anything else.
Probably because the full context of this is that, again, I mentioned Soro. He had a nightmare against Betis, so really you're left with a choice of keeping Soro in the team, knowing that his confidence was probably taking a hit after the Betis game, or trying out the guy that everyone was crying out for ahead of the Betis game. Or me in particular, I fully expected, having played some part against Ross County previously, almost scored against Ross County, I fully expected James McCarthy to play. I was shocked when Soro started. So for him to turn in that performance, really you're left with quite a poor choice between sticking with Soro and going with James McCarthy, who you may well know isn't fully up to speed with it. I mean, that's a very real possibility.
We probably thought, though, as well, that it's only Livingston. Ange probably looked at them and went, look, James McCarthy's like, look, I'm not up to full speed, but I can probably handle a game against Livingston.
When you give these guys debuts, when you give these guys starts somewhere, and where, Livingston, for many reasons in hindsight, it's not the perfect game to play them. But what we've found out through the course of the game is that they weren't ready for this. But ultimately, we need to find debuts for these. We kind of spoke about this with Ross County. If you're going to play Carter Vickers from the start of the game, why not at home to Ross County? If you're going to play James McCarthy, we're light in midfield, why not away to Livingston, where he can probably control the game? They didn't really look particularly interested in attacking much, Livingston. They weren't really.
I mean, there was
didn't he play a striker?
Nothing.
Didn't he play
literally nothing for them.
It was basically a 4-6-0 that Livingston played. They didn't really look particularly aggressive. James McCarthy should be scushing a game like that. If
Are you worried about him overall? Are you worried that James McCarthy overall is, for wanting a better phrase, past it?
I'll let Stephen go.
Well,
bear in mind that was just me asking the question.
Yeah, of course. We're just discussing these things. Am I worried about it? No, I don't. I mean, as a consideration, there's no getting away from that. I wouldn't be like that. There's no way James McCarthy's past it, because he's the wrong side of 30 now. No, only just the wrong side of 30. It's not like we're talking about a 36, 37-year-old here, but he has had a patchy record when it comes to his fitness over the last several years, and has come to the club and for various reasons hasn't really played a part yet. Now, COVID is a major part of that as well. But
for the record, I don't think he's past it.
No,
I don't think he's past it. I think, as all the caveats that I discussed earlier on, I think he needs the opportunity to get up to fitness.
Yeah.
But likewise, as I said earlier on, there is this spectre of this injury record, or this fitness concern that's hanging over him.
It was an eyebrow-raising transfer from the word go.
People are looking at the 4-year deal as well, and they're talking about that.
No, that's it, exactly. I don't think anyone was really against. Well, I'm sure some people were, but I think broadly speaking, a fan base are quite enthusiastic about bringing a guy of McCarthy's past experience, past repute to the club. There's always room for guys like that at a football club.
Do you think this fitness thing is going to hang over him until he proves otherwise?
Yeah, it is. But I don't think that can be as far off as people might suggest. Though I think he might start the next game and be totally fine. This might just have been one of these fixtures that's just come 3 or 4 days too early for him, because against Betis, we spoke after the game about how really should have been brought on at half time to save Soro from the red card, but he didn't get brought on because the reality of it is that the coaches and manager obviously know better how capable he is of playing a full half. If you'd put him on at half time, maybe he would have run out of steam with 10 minutes to go, whereas if you put him on with half an hour to go, he can probably cover that. It might just be one more game away from being full James McCarthy. We'll find out.
It is very early in the season.
We'll
get, and that's pertinent as well. It's very early, and there's still things to be worked out. Melly, you nearly jumped at your chair like someone goosed you when I suggested that McCarthy might be past it.
No, I think that's very harsh. And the thing with James McCarthy is very early on in the season for Celtic, but players always speak about it, pre-season is massive. He's not had that. He's come in very late to come from Crystal Palace, where, injured or not, when he's training, it's a very different style of training. Celtic's aggressive, press, and never give up.
And just famously is what they expect from his midfielders. That's what we heard before he even joined. What he expects from his midfielders is a lot. So
going from Roy Hodgson's training, where it's get into shape, be hard to beat, to that is a massive step for MD. So it's big fitness issues there. So this thing that he's struggling to fit into the sessions of Celtic, that'll come. Any player that's been injured, training a different style and then coming into Celtic. But the thing with James McCarthy is, if I was speaking to you 3 weeks ago and say, right, here's Celtic's next 5 fixtures, which game would be the worst game for James McCarthy to make his first start on? Given his injury record, you'd probably go, no Livingston away. But out of necessity, he's had to play because we don't have MD else, and Soro was terrible during the week, and our captain's injured. And with James McCarthy as well, sorry, just before we go on, he was probably trying to build up to fitness, and Celtic probably, I'm just surmising here, guessing, but that international break, that'll be massive for like Forrest, McCarthy, get them some intense training. The two of them didn't train the whole time because of injuries and illness. It just seems like things like that with Celtic aren't going well. We'll bring in Abada, him and Forrest can rotate because Abada's only 19 and he's not going to be consistent. He's injured, Mikey Johnson and Jota on the other side, Kyogo, and then we bring in Giamakis, we can cut if he can come in, but he's injured, Kyogo gets injured, Ajeti has to come in, and we've literally nobody. It's just all these things, and just moving away from James McCarthy a bit. The defeat yesterday was a badging, but there's been quite a few defeats this season, and from the end of last season, from January, November, whenever you want to go back, we've all talked about this rebuild. We got to the summer there, and we've not got a manager yet. It was late getting a manager in terms of time-wise. We get the manager, and then we're like, right, there's no director of football. This is going to be a big transition. Yet we're 5-6 games into it, and we're sort of moving away from transition rebuild to why are we not winning? We're only 2 weeks on from the transition finishing where we get our squad together to this. It's difficult. I know it's horrible seeing your team lose, but
I don't want you to travel too far down that road.
This was always going to happen.
We'll get to that. Yeah, I'll get to that, but I just want to stick on to the 90 minutes and the game itself just now, if I can. Selection, still staying on selection, Stephen. Before we travelled just far too far away from it, we cannot possibly talk about this. You're laughing. We can't possibly talk about anything other. The name on the team sheet that raised the most eyebrows, the biggest.
They put his picture there as well.
I know they put his picture pointing at the badge. One of the biggest names in world football, no denying. Bolingoli and Bombo started at left back for Celtic. A return for the Horny Devil, who was placed in Horny jail for a very, very long time, who copped a lot of the blame for what happened to Celtic last season, basically disowned by Neil Lennon, banished to Turkey on loan, returns at left back out of necessity again.
No, probably not. There's several options at left back. I would suggest that don't necessarily lead a straight line to Bolingoli and
Manager
Bumble.
said he'd trained, he'd worked very hard last week.
Okay, but
yeah, I know you're sceptical about this because we spoke about this off camera.
How impressive has he been in this week or couple of weeks in training that would get you a start for Celtic, bearing in mind that he has been left out of the European squad entirely?
The European squad was picked 3 weeks ago or something. But
I mean, Stephen's point is how much improvement he's done in 3 weeks.
How has he gone from completely ostracised from the first team squad to first pick at left back in such a short space of time? If not, maybe it is a necessity, but to be,
I think that tells me anyway. It's probably out of necessity. It probably says Montgomery
played 90 minutes during the week.
Not up to it. Greg Taylor's got a knock. Liam Scales is only just in the door. Maybe doesn't want to play him. And you've got Bolingoli there, who, on performance-wise, he was okay.
Oh no, I think he was totally fine. A lot of people will probably just double down on the fact that he should never been that bastard should never be near the Celtic first team again after what he did. Right? Okay, fine if that's.
We've all been horny.
I know. Come on, guys. But I found it absolutely.
We've all sent the "you up" text at 3 a.m. and then got an EasyJet flight to Marbella.
Exactly. We've all done it. If you haven't lived, but I found it absolutely mental. And a few of the comments we got on Twitter after the lineup was announced was that, I love it, mad, Ange, you mad bastard, putting in Bolingoli out of the blue. But there's no getting away from it, however it is sliced, whether it's out of necessity. I mean, necessity to a point. How often does a player get dragged back after that length of time out of necessity? Because you do get players who will just never play for a club again until they're bombed out of the team. That happens up and down Britain, where you won't get players that it'd be like, I don't know, Chelsea suddenly playing Kennedy or something like that. You remember that guy who's been out on about 17 loans for them? It was some mental like that, but he hadn't started the game for about 18 or 19 months
Yeah.
to give the full context of how long it's been since he was any kind of feature.
His last appearance was on a plastic pitch against Kilmarnock. It was out, wasn't it? But
The specialist, yeah.
see, the thing I'm still sympathising with Ange here because it's not just don't play Bolingoli. You have to look at, right, okay, what are the options then? Is it giving Scales his debut? So it seems to be every single game Celtic are giving players their debut. So there's Juranovic has a couple of starts, Carter Vickers, what's this, his third game?
Yeah.
Stephen Welsh comes in, he's 21 years old. And then if you play Scales, look at that defence. Is it just the thing that Bolingoli, I don't want to be all Gordon Strachan, but he is more experienced. He has played at this level before. If you chuck in Scales and it goes wrong, everybody's like, he shouldn't have played.
That is it.
This is what he's fighting against.
There is a
if you
reality
line up.
that exists, and what we could do maybe later on is play a game of many things are all happening at once.
Yeah.
Instead of just one thing happening,
Yeah.
there's many things happening at once, and Bolingoli's one of them. I don't think there's maybe anything wrong with saying Bolingoli's a better footballer than Liam Scales.
Well,
Or Bolingoli has had more training time with the squad
Entirely
and has a better
possible.
understanding of what. I mean, Bolingoli, as far as I'm aware, has been training with the first team all summer, all pre-season. It makes sense with the options available. Liam Scales just been in the door and a bit of an inexperienced young player to play Bolingoli against only Livingston.
That's it. But there's talk about people have said,
Only Livingston.
Bolingoli's the best left back at the club, and see if you think that's fine. He's still crap, but that doesn't say that doesn't mean he's a good left back. It just means the options are very poor. That he might be the best of a bad bunch. So the reason Celtic have Bolingoli is because they couldn't get rid of Bolingoli to bring somebody else in. So you're kind of stuck with this guy. And he's probably the highest paid out the left backs. We paid the biggest fee for him.
$4.5 million or something.
Yeah.
It's very hard. Like, I don't know how the board felt last year when Neil Lennon just banished him, because this is an asset that you bought, Lennon, and you're just kicking him out and writing this off. So
that was going to be my next point, actually, that it is, in defence of Ange making that selection out of the blue, it's not his job to manage the politics of last season, and that's why Griffiths.
And to be honest, he's made that pretty clear, hasn't he?
That's why Griffiths was welcomed back in. That's why he got a new contract and all that. And Ange started talking about him as if all it's going to take is a few goals and he'll be back on side with the fans and all that.
Yeah, meant the Dundee fans.
But it's not Ange's job to manage all the shit that went down last season and all the different reputations that were crushed and all the other behaviours and all that of last season. It's his job to get games won, and unfortunately that didn't happen, which has heightened all this stuff about McCarthy and Bolingoli and all that stuff. If they got a result yesterday, none of these things would be an issue, because see, I don't want to drag us back into McCarthy, but just to make a final point on that, there will be signings made this summer, the length and breadth of Britain, who won't be featuring yet, who if you ask the manager, will just say, no, he's not ready yet. So why McCarthy has been unnecessarily focused on in that regard, I don't know. I don't know what's really behind that, because it's nothing new. It's nothing new with football. That'll happen all the time.
I think the issue with McCarthy is it points to maybe a wider issue and some paranoia that people have having. It touches on what Melly was talking about the rebuild, about where people see this Celtic team and where people see Ange Postecoglou, and people are saying these after the game that people thought, okay, this is a failure of the transfer window again. It's a failure of the rebuild, and it's something you said, Stephen, that we don't know if these players are good yet. We don't know if this transfer window is successful.
No.
Because we've learned from last season that it takes months to tell. And people are pointing to McCarthy and going, see, this is the issue. This is the failure of the transfer window here. High paid. Apparently Ange didn't want him. When we can address this, I find that difficult to believe, to be honest. I find it difficult to believe a manager was foisted with a player he didn't entirely want, and a player joins a club where the manager doesn't want him. I'm not saying it's 100% not the case. I find it tricky to believe that.
Well, the thing is with Ange, we said it from the very start.
Let me just put a bow on this, because I've been misunderstood a couple of times in recent podcasts. I want to make sure I'm getting my point across clearly. So people are pointing to this as a failure of the manager is not getting the players he wants and not successful. But I want to come back to a point you made, Melly. Is this what are we witnessing the rebuild still in real time? Is this rebuild not a 1 window 6 week rebuild? Is the mess created and the problems we've got at this club, is it a 1 season rebuild? Is it a 2 season rebuild? Is this maybe what people are a wee bit worried about? They were bought into the idea of a rebuild, but the reality of it is it's not really going to plan.
Well, it's the same thing when Celtic are at the end of last season. It was just play the kids. And okay, that sounds brilliant, but against Midtjylland, we went in with kids and we get beat, and it's where's the signings? So that idea that you can just play the kids, well, we as Celtic fans, we want that, but at the same time we want to win games, so you can't do that because we've seen that at the start of the season. Now we want a rebuild, but we don't want to lose games. It's kind of being what a fan is. You want the best for your team, but you don't want to see them get beat. We've had a transfer window. We've seen big players leave towards the end of that. We've seen players come in, and then there's that international break, and it just sucks the life out of it. Then you come back and you've got a game, then you're into Europe, and then it's all this.
And that's it. It's many things being true at once, isn't it, Stephen? It wasn't good enough, the performance on the 90 minutes, right?
No.
Some of these players might not be 100% the players that Ange wants. That can also be true. But also what's true is we need to give Ange time to get it right.
Aye, yeah, there's no doubt about that. It is early doors, and Melly's already made the point. It might be very difficult to see the team losing just now, but at the same time,
we're not excusing the team losing incidentally.
No, not at all. We'd never want to see the team losing, but we also have to take into account just where we sit at the moment. And it's a point I've made before, but I don't want to labour it. But the unbelievable damage that has been done in the pursuit of the 10 and all that sort of stuff, it has set us back probably a couple of seasons now before just untold damage. There's no point in going down that road again, but we can't expect this to turn around so quickly.
I think it's too early to make pronouncements on the players not being good enough, the window having failed.
Yeah.
Even people out there, barely worth mentioning it, but Ange is not the guy to take it. It's too early for that.
Yeah,
you need to give this time to germinate. You need to give it time to, as Blue Cantrell said,
Germinate.
to breathe.
Germinate.
You need to give it some time to breathe. Sean Paul would be happy at that one.
Blue Cantrell mentioned on the podcast. Goodness me, where did that come from?
G2, circa 2001, down the stairs in the garage.
That was out the last time Celtic beat Livingston at Almondvale.
I think the thing about Ange not getting 100% of the players he wants is that might not be true, right? But you have to work with what you've got, and I think a lot of managers might be able to point that. Now, if Neil Lennon was sitting in the studio, if he was allowed to get to the studio and talk about that, Neil Lennon might turn around and say, well, wait a minute, I didn't get Joe Hart and Ivan Toney when I wanted them last year.
Yeah.
I got Vasilis Barkas and Albian Ajeti. How different would my Celtic career be if I got the 100% players I wanted?
We spoke about this as well when Ange came in. It was
Imagine we had Ivan Toney and Joe Hart last year. Imagine we had Ivan Toney. Let's talk about him getting that England call-up.
Be 15 points behind probably.
Yeah.
That's the thing we said with Ange, like coming in so late and coming in with no structure about him and coming in from Asia. He doesn't know the European game, never mind European players. So if Ange was to come in and say, these are the players I want, he got Kyogo and he picked Juranovic apparently, but who else is he going to bring with him? Do we want to bring all players from Asia? It was impossible. So Celtic had to bring players to Ange or go and find players once he got there. So this talk about he didn't pick the players, like, what manager picks all the players they sign?
It's not a catch-all. It's not
like
a catch-all saying this isn't working because Ange didn't get the 100% of players. But anyway, I don't want to spend far too much time talking on the upstairs backroom stuff.
But imagine this, but Ange has already done good things, right? He's imagine 2 months ago we would be talking about Tony Ralston's one of our better players, maybe he should have played. Imagine Ange gets him good and our fullbacks for the foreseeable are Ralston and Bolingoli.
As long as they're performing, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what name's in the back of their shirt. Tony Ralston, get on the phone to your agent. You really need a new contract. Now's the time to get it. There's never been a better time for Tony Ralston to get a new contract.
A final thing before we move on from this game entirely. See, when I'm talking about how we shouldn't expect the turnaround to be so perfect very, very quickly. It's not going to happen when you're introducing so many players. You're having so many debutants and people making their first appearance probably on these plastic pitches. We've got very young players coming in. We've got players trying to adapt to a new country, to a new club, to higher expectations. Sometimes, I'll admit here, oppressive expectations from us, the fans, especially what we've been through last season. There is a certain amount of we need to turn this around right now, and we need to be winning games all the time. We need to win every game. If you're not winning every game, you're a failure.
We're living through a rebuild, aren't we?
Yes, but what I would say, just slightly in balance to that, is that we need to be careful that we're not out of this come October again, because despite the fact we're not at that stage yet, there is a certain sort of statistical reality we're facing here, that if we continue to lose games, we are simply not going to win the league. And that's history here, because since Celtic weren't terrible, so let's talk about the last 25 years, since 97, 98, so it's a little under 25 years, the most Celtic have ever lost in a season and still win the league is 7 games. Now we've lost 3 already. So that is just a reality of
and
it.
We're back to several things being true at once, aren't we? We're back to, yes, we're living through a rebuild. Yes, this is a work in progress. Yes, the manager's still getting to grips and some players are still getting to fitness. But also, you need to find a way to win these games.
Yeah, and just to balance that out again, I'm not again saying that we have to win the league. I think I've been fairly realistic about the chances this season. I don't think we necessarily need to win the league, but I want to challenge. I
think the problem is, Stephen, people could accept this work in progress a bit easier, or I could anyway, if we were losing against Rangers, Hibs, Aberdeen, the teams you expect to be at the top of the league. Yeah. It's this loss to Livingston that's
it's the kick on it.
It's a gutter. You're like, fucking, and the performance, and it just all seemed to go to shit on a Sunday, you know.
Yeah. We can put all these things in, like all these circumstances, but again, you look at it like Celtic weren't playing well in that game. You're like, why is this terrible? The players out there should be doing better. But then you look at the substitutes we made, and you're like,
God, I know, Jesus, man, that was the most.
Again, bringing on Mikey Johnston for his first appearance. They say, on you go, mate. You've barely played football for about nearly 2 seasons now. Go out and turn this game around on this pitch for us. You're like, this is where we are, unfortunately, and we're going through this rebuild, and it's not been helped by these wee injuries that are going along the way. But I was going to ask you, like, we're in this rebuild. We've got, I think it was 7 games since the international break to the next one. All fairly tough games, apart from this Livingston one in Ross County last week. But you're looking at it going, right, when are we going to really sit down and say, right, we've seen enough now from Ange? Because I don't even think in between this international break is going to be enough. This one is going to be...
Are you asking when we make a decision on Ange's future?
Not a decision on Ange's future, but a decision on where this is going this season. Are we going to compete? Because...
I think you need to give them the season, no questions asked. 100%. I just think
that's quite a long. That is a bit. I don't know. I'd maybe say up to December. And then we can reevaluate.
Well, maybe, right? But
because there's that window in there.
I think he's going to get this season anyway.
I'm not saying sack him, but just for us as fans, when are we going to say, right, he's had enough time now? Is this good enough?
Oh, right. Okay, I thought you meant when. I think we have to see. We just have to see improvement. I think
we've seen it in some games, but not in ours. That's the frustration.
And this is the problem. Having been guys that have been following Celtic for years, you see it with managers who aren't very good. And now I'm not saying that these are the same guys, but with Ronnie Dyler, he would win some games at home and the tricky away, and it was very, very patchy. You know, this patchy form. You need to put together the run of games, and you know it's a big old soup of a situation, because
shit soup.
It's a big shit soup of a situation because we said when Ange came in, the one thing he must do is get backed. He must get backed, right? And I think we can all agree. Andrew cannot be happy with the squad he's got.
No, I mean, he's not been backed.
He's not been backed. But it's back to the spectrum of a couple of things being true at once. Yeah. He's not got the players that he needs. He's not got all the players that he needs, but he's got a squad maybe good enough to be there or thereabouts by the end of the season, and that's where we need to be.
I don't know if you can.
And by the way, incidentally, Rangers aren't very good at the moment. I've watched them against Motherwell; they weren't great.
See the goal they got away with. I don't want to be one of these conspiracy guys coming on here, but that goal that they got away with, it was outrageous.
See the one they conceded? Embarrassing. Rangers were terrible.
But the Ange thing on judging them, the thing is, I firmly believe that Ange has been dealt the shittiest hand of any manager we've had.
Definitely the toughest job
in 20 years. I find it hard to compare him to the likes of Dyla or to even Mowbray or anything like that.
You're right, because Dyla had it so much easier.
Dyla was handed the champions and just continued that on. Yeah, he won the league and all that, but I don't think we saw any marked improvement. Probably the opposite under Ronnie Dyla. No disrespect to him, he did his best, but I don't think we saw the improvement we wanted from him. But Ange Postecoglou has been handed an absolute shit heap and expected like a total write-off of a card, basically.
On and off the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah, so that's what I will say in defence of him. I don't know if we can necessarily apply everything we would normally do to a manager, because, I mean, we've had it pretty good, let's face it. So we find that we need to reach back pretty far, probably to Martin O'Neill, to find the shittiest hand dealt to a manager that a guy coming in has. And even that, like Martin O'Neill had a pretty good squad. Exactly. So Ange Postecoglou has had to replace effectively the entire first team, apart from Callum McGregor, really. Missing the captain, missing all the most experienced players, missing your top scorer, your best players, Edwards gone, Chris, all gone. And we're starting from square one would be generous. We're fighting to get to square one.
Square zero it was last week, wasn't it?
Exactly.
The thing with Postecoglou as well is, compared to Mowbray or Dyler, that we've not quite seen the Dundee, the Hearts game where we battered them, the St Mirren games. Like Celtic are 6th in the league with a goal difference of plus 12 because and then even those managers didn't quite have the Alkmaar. Alkmaar are a very good team. We beat them 2-0 and kept a clean sheet, so we can see what they can do, but we can also see the crap bit, and it's just about getting that together and being a bit more consistent.
Saying Livingston are a difficult team to beat. We have not beat them in a very long time. Better managers have went to Livingston and it's no happened for them. And then
crapper managers have went this season and won there, but that's the problem, isn't it?
But what I'm trying to say is there any value in just chalking this up to a bad day at the office?
Well,
or does it play into a pattern that people worried about, thinking about the Hearts game and that?
Well, that's my problem with it, is because the Rangers game, Celtic didn't play bad, but were undone by a set piece. That can happen. It's the fourth game of the season away at Ibrox. It's quite tough. The Hearts game was the first game of the season where we were in absolute turmoil, so you can kind of write them off, but then we've got 3 away games. We've lost all 3. You're like, well,
I think what worries me about it, and we'll probably wrap this up because we need to talk about the Betis game a wee bit. I think what worries me about it is, in all the games you've mentioned, Hearts, Rangers and Livy, we never saw Ange Ball. We never saw
that phrase is starting to become like Chinese water torture, man. I'm really tired on it because no one.
Well, let me just make my point, right? Okay, if you have a grump about the phrase, what I'm saying is, we never saw Ange Ball. What I'm saying is, we never saw Ange's style. The style we see at home seems to be a wee bit non-existent away from home in these games. The Rangers game, we sat here and said, that just looked like Celtic v Rangers in the past couple. That just looked like Celtic v Livingston over the past couple of seasons. That Hearts performance wasn't what we're used to seeing or want to see under Ange. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. These games, and Ange admits it himself, aren't the way, or aren't approached by this team on the pitch the way he wants the team to approach them.
The Livingston game was...
It's not like we've played our own game and lost. We've had a completely different approach.
That's the worry as well. That's when we're talking about whether it's just a bad day at the office or whether it's just a pattern with these things. We lose quite frequently there, quite frequently, and draw. But it was the manner of it. It was... I don't like to see a Celtic team look toothless up front, and quite frankly, without wishing to disrespect the wee guy community, looked like wee guys up there. Do you know what I mean? See, like Jota and Abada, who I think will be good players for Celtic. They're very young, and developing into a team. Again, all the stuff I said earlier: new environment, new league, new pressures, everything. But at the same time, a little bit toothless up there, and that's a worry if the whole thing just depends on Kyogo Furuhashi, who himself has only played about 10 games or something, you know.
The last thing I'll say on it is, how many teams are going to play very well without their captain and best player? People say recruitment. How are you ever going to have adequate backup for your two best players? It just doesn't happen anywhere in football.
So if that melee wasn't Ange Ball, and Ange Ball, as described to us before Ange Postecoglou came, was, you might lose some games, but you'll score 3, they'll score 4, or you might win some games, you'll score 4, they'll score 2. That Betis game was hectic, it was frantic, and that to me was the archetypal game as described. If you're going to lose, you're going to lose fighting. But looking at the Betis game as a whole piece, forgetting the manner, the way we lost the goals, but we really left one on them. We were aggressive in our approach. It was frantic. Again, missing key players going into the game. But I thought, get them back to Parkhead, and I think we could get something here, Melly.
That's why after the Betis game, you're like, right, that was another patchwork team, and we played Ange Ball. I know you hate it, Stephen, but we approached the game and we still played our game despite having inferior players on the pitch. So you go, right, so players can come in and out here and still play the game. In the Livingston, it all falls apart. But watching the Betis game back, you're like, it's easier the second time around because you know what's happening, despite me pretending to myself we were going to win that Livingston game. But looking at it when you're not engrossed in it, what a game of football, and you're just like, well, see if it's going to be like this and that's how Celtic get beat by a good team. You can kind of take that because you can see the shoots of positivity and go, right, see if, I said to Stephen on the match reaction when we finished, last thing, Stephen, in the fifth game against Betis at Celtic Park, a few players back, can we beat them? And he said yes straight away. That's what you want. You want to see progress, and you want to see, do you know what, if this was another game just a wee bit too early for Celtic, if we can get them back to Celtic Park, we can beat them. That's all well and good if you go out and beat Livingston, but it's just this wee taking it back. But the Betis game, good start. It's again the weakness in the middle, that period from 30 minutes to 50 minutes where we conceded the goal, that 20-minute period. Celtic aren't going to go far if they don't have a good defence, whether it's in Europe or at Celtic Park. You don't win a league with bad defences, and we need to get that sorted. I know there's changes all the time, but these are fundamental things. Like,
I mean, we saw it in the Livy game that Stephen Welsh was very weak on the ball. Very
for the goal,
very weak on the
certainly.
ball for the goal. And it's the conversation, Stephen, always kind of revolve around squad depth with Celtic now. I think it's going to be the recurring theme. You know, Ismaila Soro came in for Callum McGregor, who was missing, and I think every single person watching that game had Soro to get booked in the first 10 minutes.
Printing money now. I'm not endorsing gambling here, but get on that
because
next game.
We've spoken about Soro in the past. Even last season, I'd sort of said he was undercooked, and I suspected he just looked better in a really poor Celtic team. I think for Soro to establish himself in this Celtic team and become a regular fixture, Melly's shaking his head, but I think he's got some improving to do.
he's 23.
Yeah, well, that's it.
That's me politely saying he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you're being generous there by saying he needs improvement. That is most certainly true of Ismaila Soro. He needs to improve. Whether he can actually do it or not, I have my doubts, because, as Melly said, same age as Christopher Ayer and Odson Edward. I choked on my own laughter there. Same age as these guys who we've already had for several years, developed up as kind of hit the ceiling with Celtic and moved on to a different level.
Get better, mate, but we're not going to play you. Doesn't really stack up there.
Yeah, exactly. So on the squad depth, I think the squad was desperately thin for an away trip to Betis, who are a good team. Going any European away fixture rather, with that depth of squad, missing key players, and I don't want these to be framed as excuses. They are reasons for which I wasn't particularly confident about the game. You just, as Melly said, there's only so many players you can be missing. Your best player, your captain, several other key parts throughout the squad, and still expect to get a result. And I think the result in that context was very encouraging against Real Betis. Now, that obviously comes, we've done this kind of reverse chronologically. We've spoken about this after the Livingston game. So you come away from Real Betis thinking, oh, it's really encouraging. That really bodes well for the future.
Was saying,
and then you go and shit the nest in the very next game.
I think the difference in approach to the two games was stark, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at that going, how can you go and take the game to Betis in that way and play the way we need to play and play to our strengths, and then in the Livingston game it just doesn't happen. I mean, that's the key for me. The squad depth is a real issue, but if we're going to get anywhere with this team, we need to stick to Ange's principles when we're playing.
Before we move on from that, is that a mentality thing? Maybe have we kind of done what to Betis what Livingston did to Celtic?
I think there's probably something in that. You mean got up for the big game and then,
I don't mean try to close out the game. I don't mean don't play a striker and try and basically hit on the breaker. And what I mean is it just human nature? Have we got well up for this Real Betis team and turned in a right good performance? Unfortunately, we're not getting the result.
No. It might be human nature, but it's no Celtic player nature. It's unacceptable.
You can't because that's every game.
But it's line in the sand. You can't pick and choose when you want to turn up to be a Celtic player.
That's part of the job.
Aye.
See, on the style of play and the philosophy, looking at the first goal against Betis, the ball out from Turnbull out wide to Jota and then the cross in. Can you do that in Almondvale?
Yes.
Do you think so? Get that ball out your feet and whip it with the outside of the foot to Jota.
Rubber crumbs flying everywhere now.
No, but you can. But I don't want to bang on about the Livingston game, and I know what you're saying, but there was no excuse at all for the approach for the wingers at Livingston game. Because when Soro came on, he within about 3 seconds of getting the ball, he knew exactly what to do. Fizzed the ball right into Ajeti's feet, and Ajeti took it in the turn and nearly scored probably the best chance of the game, and Soro kept doing that. Now he hit it 150,000% far too hard a lot of the time and nearly broke Ajeti's leg, but he's an enthusiastic wee guy and he was trying to influence the game. What we did in the Betis game is what we should have done in the Livingston game. It goes without saying, but yeah, I think you can do that at Almondvale.
The first goal was an absolute cracker as well. That's the kind of thing you want to see from Celtic. Get the ball, get it out wide and get it into the box. And there's Ajeti, I think we said it last week, or I said it in reaction, it's the kind of goal Kyogo possibly scores but Edouard doesn't, where he's in that 6-yard box and he doesn't. And I thought his all-round performance was very good as well. Ajeti,
he's definitely a player with ability, Ajeti.
Yeah. But then that was the thing. We've seen it from last season. He can score goals. What else can he do? Then his performance has dropped and the injuries came in. But with that game, you're thinking, right, he done well against Ross County getting his goals, but we need to see more from the performance. Betis, we've seen that. He was holding up play. He was linking players in. You think, right, go on and play against Livingston. Go on and do this. And it just doesn't work out for him. But the thing with him is you need to create chances for him. And Celtic didn't do that against Livingston, but did here. And he gets the goal. He's in the right place. He wins the penalty. And you're thinking, well, this could be another player that we could get something from here. And when we went 2-0 up in Dreamland, Juranovic stepping up for
what a penalty that was.
The penalty at 2-0. But again, as soon as they scored, I thought, we're going to get beat here. There was 60 odd minutes left of the game.
Yeah.
That's the whole Celtic
two
thing,
goals
isn't
in
it?
2 minutes from Real Betis.
It might just be my perception, but it feels like that's just too often now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the quick fire goals. It's almost like as soon as I concede that one, it's an inevitability that another one is going to come right in the back
this is
of
a
it.
new team, so it shouldn't be anything to do with this team. But
exactly.
Is it a Celtic thing because we as Celtic want to be on the front foot attacking? So is this the trade-off we need to make when we get to Europe? Because would you rather play like Rangers and just be boring but win games 1-2-0, or would you rather be Celtic and win 4-1 or that? Because we're looking at it now. Rarely in my lifetime have Celtic ever been able to defend. Even Martin O'Neill's team shipped goal after goal away from home in Europe like this. I mean, you go away from home in Europe and you'd be expected to be a 1-0 down within 10 minutes. And I know this is a completely different team, but is this the way it's going to be with Celtic, the way we play?
I don't think it's that. I think it comes back to the players again. The Betis goals, who was at fault really for the first one?
Well, this is it. Even the Betis goals or the Livingston goal were not torn apart.
Yeah,
it's just.
I was talking about the Betis goal. Who was at fault for the first one? Would you say?
The first one,
Jota and Soro kind of made half-arsed attempts.
Yeah, and then Anthony Ralston was kind of sleeping a wee bit. That was the first goal.
That was the second goal.
Was that the second goal? Right. It's always the point I was going to make there was it's always the players that just aren't quite good enough. It's always the same names coming up.
It's a second too late.
It's the players. It's Stephen Welsh, maybe not quite good enough yet. It's Anthony Ralston. He's been performing well, maybe not quite good enough yet. Soro, we know, not quite good enough yet. Comes back, squad depth. It's when we've not got that best 11, which no manager really can say, right, I've got my perfect 11 and everyone else is crap and expect to win anything. But it's when we seem to dip into the pool, when we're reducing the quality a wee bit, then these players are flagged up again. Soro, Ralston, okay, he's playing well, but he was at fault. Maybe that's just a stretch too much for him. Stephen Welsh, these guys, you're just like, they were all players who replacements were probably bought for, but we're back into the pool to get them.
Even Carter Vickers steps up, but it's just one of these. It's just these not individual errors, but individual lapses of concentration. Like
not every goal is preventable. Like
no.
And it's not a case of like, I know there's like a trend at the moment where as soon as a goal goes in, everyone tries to find out exactly who's to blame for it and pin it on somebody. The point I was making was a lot of these goals rather could be chalked down to just players maybe who aren't good enough at the level.
I don't quite know about that, but sorry, Stephen. The thing with the Celtic goals this season are just see if a team scores a good goal against us. Fine, I'll take that. Make teams work hard for the goal. The first goal, as you're saying, Soro, why doesn't he make the challenge? Because he was stupidly booked a couple of minutes into the game. The second goal, why is Carter Vickers deeper than Starfelt and then calling offside, then second guessing himself? Why is Anthony Ralston not aware there's a guy over his shoulder then until he runs past him? It's just these wee simple things. Like, it's not the one mistake, but it's the lapses in concentration that if we didn't make them, you wouldn't notice it in the game. But when it goes wrong, it goes badly wrong, and this is what you need to cut out, because this is when you get chopped up in Europe, and Celtic aren't getting ripped apart, but they're getting chopped up because they're making these lapses in concentration. And it's not as if you can go, oh, again it's Carter Vickers' fault, again it's Starfog's fault. It's a different player each time.
And you make an interesting point as well previously, is that why is it in the DNA? Because I immediately said, I put it down in my notes watching the game as well, and we spoke about it in the reaction to the Betis game. I thought it was very much like the AC Milan game from 2020, where raced into this amazing lead. How have we managed to get into this position? How have we managed to get into this position in a game nobody fancied winning? And then it's the quick fire, it's the 2-3 minutes apart, the goals conceded, right? And you think, well, will Celtic have done it again? But why? Because
I think they get a nosebleed.
Yeah, but why? I'm being largely rhetorical here. I'm not expecting an answer here. But why is it?
Okay, I'm going to give you one.
But why is it different players that do it? Why different managers, different coaches?
It's game management, maybe.
I think what it plays into is, and I was being slightly facetious when I say you get a nosebleed. Your game plan. Oh, you go shit. Oh, we're 2-0 up. What's happened? I mean, you go into the game expecting to get beat. You go into the game and you just think in the back of your head the whole time, oh, they're going to score. I mean, there's no way this team are not going to score against us. And then the goal comes and you go, shit, we knew that was coming. You're getting a bit panicked, and it's maybe not something that is in the DNA of Celtic. Maybe it's something in football matches where the underdog gets 2 early goals. You know, and we didn't. But I think that's what is in the DNA of Celtic, Stephen, is the need to be on the front foot, the need to attack. It's almost the perfect storm, because Livy go a goal up, they see no problem with putting 11 men behind the ball, and the stats, they completed 90 passes or something the whole game. So Livy go 1-0 up, shut up shop. What's not in Celtic's DNA is to go 2-0 up within 20 odd minutes or whenever we went 2-0 up and shut shop at that point.
Would you ever be confident of Celtic going 2-0 up?
The only manager that did that was Strachan. The only manager, that's how Strachan got results in Europe. He would score 1 or 2 goals and then he would just slow the game right down, and people hated it. But he got results in Europe from time to time. Now, I've not seen a better manager than Ange Postecoglou. That's not what I'm saying.
Didn't play by the book, played by his own rules.
But what I'm saying is, I think what's in Celtic's DNA is to be on the front foot. You know,
remember we beat Astana 5-0 and we still shat the bed in the second leg. We didn't obviously throw it away, but we were just shitting goal after goal. But it's one of those where, yes, Celtic go ahead, but the thing, it can't be a DNA thing because it's different players, different manager, all this sort of thing. But the problem Celtic have over the so many years, the same thing keeps happening. We are not prepared for the Champions League games. So in these games, we concede bad goals, and that feeds in it from the start of the season. So as soon as Celtic let in a goal in any game, then it's, we might concede another one. What we need to do is get a fucking shit together for the start of the season. Because look at the Brendan Rodgers second season when we did beat Astana 5-0. That was a settled team that went into that game, the last qualifying, and we absolutely battered them 5-0. We've never done that since in a qualifying game. Every year we go into these unprepared, and it filters into the season, into every game. It's Celtic letting a goal early in the season from a set piece, so that's it. We've still got the same problems as last year, despite it being a completely different team. Celtic let in 2 goals in quick succession. It's the same problem we've always had, despite it being a different team. We need to get our stuff sorted together so we can get a start to the season and get ahead of ourselves instead of going back to last season, despite it being a completely different squad manager mentality.
So, Project Rebuild, Stephen, our very successful podcast series, looks as if it's in line.
Yeah, it's going to become an anthology series. Nothing in common with the previous one.
Look, as much as we got away with the defeat in the Betis game, I felt kind of good after it. I thought there was positives to definitely take from that Betis game that we'd no seen in Livingston. The Livingston game was a shit show. Yeah. You know, we know that. But the Betis game, there were positives for sure.
Well, taking into account that we're going to have better players coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have all the stuff we've already been talking about. No Callum McGregor, no Kyogo, no Julian as well. To a lesser extent because he's not played at all yet. But
even guys like Forrest Giamakis, all options, aren't they?
Exactly.
So, going to see the Yak against Wraith Rovers, I think. And Ange said that.
By the way, I think Wraith Rovers is massive for us just to get players fit.
Yeah.
Celtic... I'm not going to tell Ange Postecoglou how to do his job, but Scales, McCarthy, Soro, we need to get Giamakis, we need to get guys, Mikey Johnson, Forrest if he's fit, we need to get guys game time so we have some options. I had a look at the Europa League ties from Thursday night. I think it was 32 teams playing, or maybe 30, I think there was one game the day before, out of the 30 teams that played, Celtic and Brøndby were the only teams that didn't make at least 2, 3, 4, 5 subs. Celtic and Brøndby were the only teams in that only made one sub, because Celtic don't have any options there.
Yeah.
We were chasing a game and brought on one sub.
That's it. It's the point we'll be making for this whole podcast. Yeah. And on that covers our coverage of the games this week. But regular long-term listeners will know that every season we make bold predictions, including our player of the year and a new one, breakout player of the year, rather young player of the year, breakout performance of the year. So what we do is we make 3 bold predictions and we review them at the end of the season. Stephen, I'm going to come to you first. Who's going to be player of the year for you?
I think we're all going to struggle to look past Kyogo here anyway. Are we giving it although bear in mind, in past seasons we have gone, I think there was one season in particular, maybe 2 or 3 ago, where everyone was just like, we'd be all just giving Ian Cham the now.
Yes.
Remember, he started the season absolutely on fire. I can't remember when it was. Well, give Ian Cham right now. He's been absolutely phenomenal. But it would take a very bold prediction to take it away from Kyogo at this stage. So it's boring. It's a little bit predictable, but I'm just going to go Kyogo.
I can't see past Kyogo. He, I think, is going to end up player of the year. It looks like it's his to lose already. So player of the year is definitely my choice. Is going to be Kyogo.
I was going to go against the grain, and pick Cal McGregor, but he's been there that long. He kind of deserves it. But Kyogo's the new thing, and he's going to get it. And if he stays fit,
that's what I went with last year. I said Cal McGregor's kind of due one, and in
the gigs.
In a way, it would be a shame if he still doesn't get one. Still doesn't get an official 20-minute Tim's Player of the Year. Cal McGregor. It's the one thing he's got left to win in his career is the 20-minute Tim's Award for Player of the Year. But it would take a brave man to go against Kyogo, to be honest.
Who's going to be your breakout / surprise of the year?
I think I've
got one that's a wee bit controversial.
Yeah, I've been very, very wrong in the past.
Doesn't have to be a young player.
Yeah. I'm going to go with. You know what? I'm going to go with Cameron Carter-Vickers. I'm just going to go. I mean, it's a relatively big signing and all that, but he kind of went under the radar, snuck in just in the transfer deadline day.
Yeah.
Not to a huge amount of fanfare. Had been kind of linked to him a couple of times before that, so just kind of underwhelmed. But I think even against Livingston, he was one of the most dangerous players, and he's he's a centre half. I'm going to go with him as the kind of breakout star. Quite what that means, I don't know. It's all open for discussion at the end of the season. It's a wee bit like the dark horse discussion when you're talking about a tournament. What does a dark horse even mean? Do you expect them to win it or whatever? But I'm going to go with that.
That's quite a difficult one for me, but I think if you'll let me have it, I'm going to go Leila Bada, because I think he's going to have a dip in form but come right back into it, and then by the end of the season he's just going to be the main man for that position.
Oh, nice one.
Joe Hart,
right, okay.
Joe Hart is going to end this season as a firm fan favourite. He's going to put in a lot of good performances for us. He's already saved our bacon a couple of times. Livingston kept us in it, even though we weren't in it at the time. I thought that save that he pulled off against Livingston.
Well, at the risk of repeating ourselves every week, that we've kind of bypassed the Joe Hart, the kind of now standard Joe Hart chat that we have basically in every podcast, but he did produce big saves in both of these games, actually, the Betis and the Livingston game. There was one kind of weird one where he almost kind of bicepped it over the bar against Livingston. Had that gone in, we'd been serious bother. Was one for the wee even weirder and weirder Forrest brother towards the end of the game as well. So another big performance. So a good choice.
Now on to the bold predictions. Bold prediction, I'm just going to go right in at number 1. Kyogo is going to outscore Dembele, Edward or Griffiths' best seasons. So he's going to outscore all of them.
40 goals? Yeah. Over 40 goals? Gee, the temperature just raised, went through the roof in this room.
And then, do you know why I'm going to wish that to happen? So we never hear about this Griffiths 40 goal season ever again.
What better reason for him to stick those goals in? Was he on about 6 or so?
41. I just want 41.
41 goals. That's wild. So if anyone hasn't heard this before, the bold prediction is the brackets mad shite.
Yes, it's bold for a reason. We want one of them to come true. It's bold for a reason. Stephen, what's your first bold prediction?
Well, on the Kyogo tip, and I've kind of cheated with this as well, because I'm slightly recycling and slightly tweaking one that I've used in seasons gone by. People may remember that I once predicted Ryan Christie to get double figures in goals, assists and bookings. I'm going to apply it to Kyogo as well, because there is that wee hint of aggression about him.
Yes,
He likes to pull
yes.
jerseys and all that. So, but I'm going to pull back on it ever so slightly. He's going to fail. He's just going to come slightly short of the triple-double. He's going to get 9 bookings this season, but double figures for everything else.
Melee.
Ange Postecoglou will leave Celtic at the end of the season.
No.
Win or lose.
No, you think you just can't put up with our shit any longer?
Oh,
Jesus.
oh, jeez, this is
Very reminiscent of my famous Brendan Rodgers one at the time. My bold prediction, number 2, might have a bearing on yours. I think by the end of this season, all major boardroom positions at Celtic will have changed, and we will have a director of football.
full, Desmonds across the board. A mixture of Desmonds and Strackens.
There we go, yeah.
That is bold. I think that's the one we're going to look back and go, what were you thinking? We still with the same stooges in there.
Next one for me then, I'm going to go with Adam Montgomery. I don't really know what first choice really means anymore. So how I'll frame it is that I think Adam Montgomery will...
Well, how about this for a criteria? Makes more appearances starting than he does off the bench.
Well, what I was going to say is that how I'll frame it is that he will be selected for major fixtures ahead of Greg Taylor. So in effect, the quote first choice left back come the end of the season. But how I'll measure that is by him being selected for major fixtures ahead of Greg Taylor. That's been thrown into disarray with the return of Bowley, Ryan.
Yes.
Maybe talking pish, but that's what I thought.
Mikey Johnson will outscore Jota.
Mikey Johnson, have you seen the boy play?
Oh, he's back.
Stephen, any issues with that?
No, do you know what? I tend to forget about Mikey Johnson. I tend to completely forget him, to be honest, but he is, as I've already alluded to,
He was nearly my breakout star. Jota was nearly my breakout.
Adding to the wee guy quota, Mikey Johnson comes straight back into the wee guy contention up front, so yeah, can never have too many of them.
Final one for me. Callum McGregor is going to be a one-season captain.
Oh.
I suppose we won't. Well, that is a bold prediction that we won't find out about until next season. So we can't really revisit that one.
Is that cheating? Well, so does Melly's. Melly's cheating. Ange might leave in the summer.
We're not doing these till the middle of September.
We'll revisit them.
A couple more from me. I'm going to go for David Turnbull.
Spreading his bets, Melly.
David Turnbull to outscore Alfredo Morelos this season. So he's already got 3 or 4. I think he got that hat trick as well.
Man, that's bold.
And Sobel Cameron Carter-Vickers.
That was just fucking mental. Right.
Cameron Carter-Vickers to outscore
real
El Buffalo.
Carter-Vickers love in here. Wow, where did this come from? And
just a final one. Again, mad shite.
Okay.
Joe Hart will square up to a member of Rangers coaching staff.
Jimmy Bell.
He's not got that in him, but preferably that wee weird guy Michael Beale. I want to see them.
Very weird.
I want to see them pulling each other's collars.
Michael Beale is a weird looking guy. He is a weird. It looks like he's got a plucky chin.
My last one is Boson Law to make at least 3 appearances by the end of the season.
Stephen. 3 whole appearances?
Jings, man.
3? Wow.
3 starts.
3 starts. Jesus Christ, Melly. Okay.
Wowzers, trousers.
Yeah, not very bold, that one. Did you just think that up while you were sitting there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Right, okay. And on that, bombshell.
Oh, happy birthday, Henrik, by the way, before we go. Is it 50 today?
Happy birthday, Henrik. And happy birthday, Stephen.
Yes.
By the time the next podcast rolls about, it'll be your birthday.
Henrik Larsson is almost exactly a certain amount of years older than me.
Stephen doesn't want a fuss made.
Well, let's.
You want a wee fuss made.
What we'll say is that it puts to bed a long-running joke of the podcast that we often say about our ages.
Yes, there we go.
An office-based gag that we say that we all fit into a certain category. That will be the end of that.
I'm disappointed in you. You have had a whole year to remind everybody every month that your birthday's coming up like Jamie does, and you haven't taken it.
December. Mine's still a couple of months away. I don't start the birthday. Run up to the birthday usually begins about October. So that's when.
Is it not exactly 4 months to your birthday today?
No, it's 4 months tomorrow. To my birthday.
Yeah, see, I knew that.
Close.
I'm better.
There we go. That's why you're the best one. And on that bombshell, 4 months tomorrow to Jamie's birthday, we shall wrap up. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who listens to us and who watches us when we're available on YouTube. Melly, would you like to say goodbye?
I would. Goodbye.
Stephen, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, folks.
Thank you for listening.